that they're often aiming for unnatural sleep patterns, okay? So basically what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about unnatural sleep patterns is like things like really robotic naps, early sleeping through the night, those sorts of things, and also expecting it to continue to work in the same fashion when that's really just not reasonable, okay? So I keep saying this, but infant and toddler sleep is not linear. And what does that mean? So not linear means that you would not actually expect it to keep working in the same way over a period of time. And to obviously explain this, I'm going to explain how sleep rolls out, okay? So when we're looking at their newborn, so newborns don't have any kind of sleep rhythm, okay? So no sleep rhythm, and they're usually quite sleepy, okay? The very first flag that you would ever see in a newborn is to have them really being quite wakeful. That will obviously then mean that there's something in the way of them achieving that sleepy newborn state, okay? So what then happens next is they then obviously start to develop their sleep rhythm. So they have their nap rhythm at around 8 to 9 weeks. Okay, so nap rhythm 8 to 9 weeks, we're looking at 40 to 45 minute cycles here. Okay, so this happens here. At this point, night sleep should still be good, okay? So they really should only be waking up when they're actually hungry or something's bothering them incidentally, not erratically at this point, okay? So then the next thing that happens is the night rhythm develops. And this happens at somewhere between 4 to 6 months. Okay, so we're then looking at roughly 2-hour sleep spindles. Okay, so essentially what a sleep spindle is a coupling of a regular length sleep cycle. So we're looking at 40 to 45 minutes there at that age. And then an extra sleep cycle that's a bit longer, and joining together they make a sleep spindle, okay? So what you would reasonably expect to see at this change in their night sleep at 4 to 6 months is they're going to start waking quite erratically to start off with, and then they reasonably should fall into a 2-hourly sort of pattern, and then only wake up then once they're hungry or something's bothering them again after maybe 4 to 6 weeks, okay? So you would see it fall apart there, 100%. And yes, it is worse for some than others, right? But it should totally come back together. Then you're looking for a bit of a sunny period before you get to the 9-month sleep regression. So 9-month sleep regression is actually the very first time that true separation anxiety appears, okay? So it is actually a development. I don't actually like the word regression. However, it is just so firmly rooted in how we explain these things that if I use other language for it, it might become confusing for you. So no, they're not regressing, they're not going backwards, but they're changing, they're developing, and the change is actually making their sleep pattern more tricky, okay? So 9-month sleep regression will happen somewhere between 8 to 10 months. It is not necessarily at 9 months, okay, but it is actually marked by separation anxiety, all right? Then you will then have the 12-month regression. So this one is actually another wave of separation anxiety. In fact, they all are, Okay, so 12-month regression also has another very marked development. They actually understand cause and effect at this point, which I tend to think is a big player in this. Okay, then we also have similar 18-month sleep regression, and we also have 2-year sleep regression. And we also have somewhere between 2.5 to 3 years old, we have the development of abstract imagination. So this is actually super important. This is actually something that I feel would almost make the sleep of a 2.5 to 3 year old child even more tricky than a younger baby, because what happens for them at this time is, for the very first time, they're insecure with their actual environment. The things like shadows and things like noises that are in their environment are all of a sudden becoming really scary. And this is actually the development of true fear of something that is in their environment at this time as well. And I'm not talking about stranger danger and stuff like that. That happens much earlier. But that abstract fear of something that could happen is rooted in this developmental stage. This causes some real ruckus with sleep very frequently. Okay, so then the other thing that happens within this whole period, okay, is at some point in this little area here, so we're looking at around the 6 to 8 month mark, we have a nap drop from 3 to 2. And then somewhere in here, we have another nap drop from 2 to 1. And then somewhere here, we have another nap drop from 1 to 0. Okay, so realistically, you can see for yourself that we're not expecting it to run smooth sailing this whole way through. Just because your child establishes sleeping through the night here, as an example, does not mean they're going to sleep through the night here. Okay, just because they basically worked out how to self-settle here does not mean they're going to self-settle here. Okay, so it's really, really important to understand that normal sleep is very, very up and down. Okay, so basically these up and down patterns are normal, but what will cause further up and downs here? Okay, because the thing is, we're expecting this, but what will cause it to be more erratic than this? So then when we're looking at something more erratic than this, obviously we're looking at things like illness, right? But not necessarily limited to illness. We can actually have a medically well baby with a sleep problem. And here we're looking at things like pain, breathing, problems, food problems like intolerance, allergy, deficiency. And then we're talking about like environment problems as well. So environment problems like light problems, smell problems, sound problems, or even allergies to the environment as well. Okay, so essentially what sleep consultants are actually doing here is we're actually aiming for this unnatural pattern where not only are they expecting us to establish something that keeps working all the time, but then the other thing that I would like to talk to you about is night waking and also nap lengths and things like that. Okay, so basically what they are doing is they're aiming for sleeping through the night, usually around here, right? So we're looking at 6 months. Now, new research, I'm talking about 12-month-old research, has found that 70% of 12-month-olds wake at night, right? 16% of 6-month-olds sleep through the night. Okay, so we're talking about 1 to 2 wakes here, normal. We're talking about occasional waking here. Sorry. Normal, okay. So basically, when we're looking at 1 to 2 wakes being normal at 12 months, we're then looking at maybe about 2 to 3 wakes being normal at 6 months, okay? Then we're looking at being up and down. So then ironing out all of that waking past that like 2 to 3 here with a strategy is actually forcing an unnatural pattern, okay? So if somebody talks to you about your child's sleep, and your child is sleeping and waking up 2 to 3 times, and they happen to be 7 months old, and they're telling you that they need to help you with that, that's actually not okay, right? Because that's actually a really normal pattern. It's also really normal to obviously have a bit of difference between naps as well. So when we're talking about naps, I think that from my observation, it is normal to have a range of a difference between about an hour in a peer group. So anything really more or less than that is a bit of an issue, and it's signifying that there's something going on. And what I mean by that is that roughly all 5-month-olds, as an example, will need about the same amount of sleep, give or take an hour. Roughly all 2-year-olds will need roughly the same amount of sleep, give or take an hour, right? Roughly all the same 30-year-olds will need the same amount of sleep, give or take an hour. Okay, so when we're talking about the naps are actually really important, but they just need to be adequate. They do not need to be robotic. They do not need to be perfect. You would expect them to be different every single day. If one day your child's second nap is 1.5 hours and the next day it's 2.5 hours, normal. Okay, it is so normal for you to have different patterns in each day, all right, as long as the naps are supporting the night. Naps and night sleep are not the same. Naps are bridges to manage the hormones, to stop overtiredness, to allow your child to get to the good quality night sleep without being overtired. So yes, that is different every day. They have different levels in their metabolism and energy levels and activity levels and input and output of their body. It is normal to have variation. Please do not feel like you're failing if you can't make it work the same every single day, because it just simply won't, all right? So basically the standard sleep model is really pushing for early sleeping through the night and robotic naps. As you can see, it's not actually a feasible thing here, okay? And what is really important is that we note that there will be ups and downs and differences from day to day, and the actual pattern is not where you'll see the problem. The pattern is not very much of an indicator at all unless it's significantly disturbed, okay? So obviously this is a lot of information to take in about this, and obviously I welcome any questions that you have about this, so please do ask, but realistically this is what normal looks like. Normal is not as seamless as what you are told. Okay, so you have probably had your eyes opened right now about what is actually something that you're aiming for, and hopefully that means for you that you have noticed that your pattern is normal. But honestly, if you've noticed your pattern is not really normal, then we can sort that out and we can make it normal. Okay, thanks for joining me, lovely.